Hey, it's Friday. Let's form check. Hey guys, welcome back to another Form Check Friday. I'm Paul. Thank you all for joining me again for another round of form checks. Looks like we've got a good group as always. We're going to start today off with a little bit of a tutorial on a question I get all the time on Reddit. Surprisingly, it's more common than I thought it would be, but you guys ask a lot about how do I deal with a break from training? What happens if I miss a workout? What happens if I miss a week? I got an injury. I've been out for 2 months. How do I get back into the gym? So what I thought I would do to start off is just a quick tutorial on how I approach coming back from a break and trying to mitigate the losses, trying to maintain as much strength as possible and get back as quickly as possible. So I'm probably going to cut this into a separate YouTube video and just put it on my YouTube channel. But I figured I'd just shoot it right now as the intro to our Form Check Friday. And then those of you tuning in can watch it. And then I'll put up a separate video, just sort of like for the record, after this. But so I've got a background here that I made. We'll come back to that later. Oops, there we go. Okay. So basically, what do you do when you miss a workout? Well, it depends on how long you've been out of the gym. So the idea is we want to get back as quickly as possible. And one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they take time off from training is that they give up too much. They back off the weights too much, more than necessary, because the first workout back feels awful. It always feels awful. I mean, if you miss one session, it's not that big of a deal. But if you miss a week or longer, you can guarantee that the first session back into the gym is going to feel terrible. And so they go back in and everything feels awkward and heavy. They feel rusty and they think this is too heavy. I need to back off more. And so based on how that first session feels, they take even more weight off the bar. They reset even further. And that is exactly the wrong strategy because if you get back into the gym and handle a weight as heavy, as close to where you left off, depending on how long you've been out, but you want to get that intensity on your back, so to say, in your hands, as quickly as you can, then no matter how awkward and terrible it feels, the next session back will feel a lot better and you don't have to set yourself back so far. So you can just go into this expecting that the first session is going to feel terrible and your job is to just get through it. And then at the following session, you'll notice that, oh man, I feel back on track. So I always want my guys handling, even if we have to cut the reps down, and I'll explain the whole process for different lengths of breaks in a second. But the idea is wherever you left off, handle a weight as close to that point as you can, even if it's only for one rep, even if you get, 1 or 2 reps, it will prevent further detraining and you'll be back on track a lot faster than if you go by feel and just assume that you've lost a bunch of muscle mass. You're not actually going to lose that much muscle mass if you take even like a month or 2, even longer off. As long as you're active, walking around, living your life, and your protein's high, you will not lose as much muscle mass as you would think. It's going to be negligible. So the difficulty of the training session, how hard it feels, is really in your head. And it's really it's psychological and it's neuromuscular detraining. So it's more of your body kind of forgets how to do what it used to do. So it's not that you've lost a bunch of tissue. It's just that the connection between your brain and your muscle fibers is it needs to be kicked back on or strengthened, so to speak. So basically, like I said, we're going to deal with this based on how long you've been out of the gym. So the first one's really easy. If you've missed 1 or 2 sessions, just repeat the weight. And if the previous session was easy and you took a week off or you missed a session, you might even go up because you're not really going to lose that much strength. And if you're using a program like I use with rep ranges, where it's like 3 to 5 or 5 to 8, that's even better because maybe when you come back, you only get 4. Fine, you repeat the weight next time and you're going to get 5. So 1 to 2 sessions off, no big deal. Just repeat the same weight. Or if it was really easy before, just pretend like you didn't even miss it and try going up and see how you do. When you get into 1 to 2 weeks off, you're probably going to have to back off the weight, and how much you back off depends on how hard the last workout was, what the exercise is. So for example, if you're doing something like an overhead press and you've been out for 2 weeks, for my clients, I might back off 5 pounds. I might back off 10 if it was a grinder, or if we're doing a rep range and they were doing 3 to 5 and the workout before the break, they only got 3 and then they took 2 weeks off, I might back off 10 pounds or something like that. But you take a little bit of weight off. Squats and deadlifts, if you've been out for 2 weeks, 10 pounds, maybe if it was like a grinder at your last workout and then you were out for 2 weeks, you might take 15, but you want to keep as much weight on that bar as possible. Remember, you earned every pound you put on that bar through your sweat, through your hard work, through all your effort, and you don't want to give it up without a fight. And then the last one would be a month or longer. So if you've been injured, sick, traveling, if you had a long interruption, yet maybe you had surgery and you're out for 3 to 6 months, the process for coming back is you got to figure out where you are, right? There's no percentage that's going to tell you, like I could tell you take 20% off, but like, we don't know if that's how much you've detrained. And you might be able to get away with only taking 10% off. You're not going to know till you try. So my approach is to figure out where you are on the day you come back. And that's basically like running a novice progression where we're going to do ascending sets of 5 and we're going to try and get as close to where you left off as possible, but we're just going to see where you are. So I have an example down here. We had a guy, his last squat session, our hypothetical lifter, he did 315 for 5. And let's say he took a month, 2 months off. So at that point, I'm going to take some weight off the bar because I know he's not going to get 315 again. He's just been out of the gym for too long. So I'll back off 90% and set that as the top set. So in this case, that would be 285. Now, I don't expect him to get 285. If it's there, if he didn't detrain that much and, 255 felt pretty good, he can try for 285. But that's just the top end. And then we're going to back off. We're going to work our way up to that in relatively even jumps, things that are easy to load. So he'll start with a, warm up of a set of 10 with the bar. And then we'll do 135 for 5, 185 for 5, 225 for 5, 255 for 5. And then depending on how that feels, he can go for 285 if he wants to. But what I always tell my clients is just go to the point that you think that's it for today. So if 225, if he was out for 6 months and 225 just felt like this is it, like I barely finished that set, then don't do 255, but just do a set, take a break, try the next set, see how it felt. If it felt pretty, your form held together, you feel pretty good, try the next set and then go as high as you can. Now, if it's 255 and he gets 5, but that was kind of it for the day, then we're just going to restart his program there. So the next time he goes in, he can try 255 again if he's doing sets across, like 3 sets of 5, or if he's doing one of my programs where it's a top set and a back off set and he got 255, then maybe next time we'll go to 260 or 265. But the method here is just to don't guess where you are or don't use some arbitrary percentage. Go into the gym and test it out, see where you are. And oftentimes I'll find that a guy, maybe 255 looked hard, but not, the limit for the day. And so I'll say, all right, look, go to 285 and just do as many reps as you can do, right? So even if he puts 285 on his back and gets 1 rep, that's still going to put him, it's going to prevent even further detraining. And his next session, he'll probably get 3 or 4 reps and then we'll just stay there till he hits 5 and go up from there. So the idea here again is just get as close as you can to where you left off, even if you just want that weight on your back. You just want to move it and hold it and get through that rep so that the next session, you're going to be so much closer to where you left off as, you know, than if you had taken, 20% off and just said, this is where I am now. And now you've got to claw your way back, because the further you stay away from that 315, the longer it's going to take you to get back there. So I would much rather have a guy work up to, in this example, 285 and do a double or triple. And then I promise you at the next workout, he'll probably get 5, because that muscular efficiency kicks back on real quickly. And like I said, the next workout after your first one back from a break is going to feel, it's like night and day. It's going to feel so much better. So that's the gist of it. Repeat weights for if you miss 1 to 2 sessions, no big deal. If you've missed longer than that, a week or two, you might back off 5 to 10 pounds. Just continue on. And then if you've been out for a month or longer, figure out where you are. Use ascending sets, go as high as you can, set that as your starting point for the next workout, and then just go from there. And you'll find, especially for extended breaks, that you can make bigger jumps, excuse me, once you get back into it. So in our example, maybe he topped out at 255 and the next week he goes back in and 260 he just smoked it, because, everything's kind of back. He's back in the groove. We might just jump to 270, 280, and then, start making 5-pound jumps from there. So your strength comes back very quickly once you get back under the bar. So that's my approach for getting back after missing workouts. I hope that was useful, and we'll go from there. All right, so let's get into Form Check Friday, why you're all here. So, all right. As you guys know, I haven't seen any of these, so thank you all for submitting, and we are going to dial in and see. I find DrKudos, his name is Neil. I finally remembered that. Okay, so last time we were working on press, before that squat. So let's see. Hi, Paul. I was able to hit a new press PR based on your feedback from last week, so thanks for that. That's awesome. We were talking about the hip bounce, and I'm working on replacing my wussy hip flick with a full body bow. Good. Some reps are better than others. My quads were sore the next day, so I take that as a sign that I'm doing a good job flexing and staying tight throughout the rep. I'd love to know what other thoughts you have. Okay. So I assume this is a press. Let's take a look, and let me just kill this volume here, and we'll check. We'll see oh, okay. Yeah, so we're trying to get more pop in the hips. Better. Much better. Good. Yeah, so the problem last time was the hip. He was just kind of, that hip thrusting motion forward was very subtle, let's say. Oh, good. There we go. There we go. Get your head under it. Get your head under it. Okay. So this is easier said than done, but when you get to this point right here, right there, and that's where you're going to stick, all you need to be thinking about right now is just this way. Okay? Head, not just head, right? Head and shoulders, the whole torso. You want to shove that thing under the bar, because like I said, as soon as that bar gets over the back of your neck, it's going to shoot up. But right now it's out in front, right? It's here and the balance point is here. So you've got this leverage. But if you can close that distance by diving under it, right? Which is this goes forward and actually your hips come back. It's not just moving forward. It's this motion right here. Okay. So this is, you're doing everything right. The form looks correct, but in terms of what you're focusing on after the bounce in that sticking point, it's get under it, slam your face to the wall, dive under the bar. That's what I always tell people when I'm yelling at them, dive under the bar, right? Because you're still a little in front. If you kind of pulled your hips back and pushed your chest forward and the bar behind you, it would fall into that vertical alignment over the joint, and then it would be more efficient. But overall, like, this is much better and nice way to stick with it, right? Press is kind of where you learn how to grind. All right, these are pretty good. So I don't know if I have a lot to say here, but let's watch it again just to make sure. Yeah, notice how early on when you're fresh, you can really dive under it, like your head, you're really pushing your head under it. That's what you want. The problem is when you get tired, you know, you hang back a little longer. This happens to everybody. Let me watch your hips. Good. Let's see if that bar is dipping. Good. Yeah, you're getting that pop there. Okay, man. These are great. So your work, I mean, really a lot better. Your homework now, the only thing that's going to make this better, since the movement is technically correct, is sort of what you focus on when you're doing the rep, right? And like I said in the last form check video with you, the more aggressively and dynamically you can pop the hips and create that bounce, the higher the bar will jump. So it's just a matter of you playing around with, like, how much can I actually push this? Like, how dynamic and aggressive can I make that bend, that reach forward with the hips? And the other thing to watch out for is to make sure that you're patient. You have to let the bar dip down and pop up. And one of the things a lot of guys get wrong is they rush the pressing part, right? So there's a rhythm to this, okay? If you think about the hips, press, bounce, press, 1, 2, 1, 2, okay? Boom, boom. That rhythm, you need to internalize that, okay? Because if you go hips press, your hips are going out at the same time you're starting the press. So you're actually leaning. I mean, you're not doing this, but this is an exaggerated example, but it happens all the time. They don't wait for the hips to rebound before they start pressing. So they push the hips out and then too soon start the press while they're still leaning back. So they actually increase the distance between the shoulder joint and the bar. Okay, so you have to wait until your hips come back and be patient. Let the bounce happen, and then when it starts to lift naturally as a reaction to the hip movement, as it starts to go weightless, that's when you drive it. Okay, so you gotta hang on to it, let your hands and arms, let your arms sit against you. Okay, they're taking the weight, right? Like your lats, your ribs are taking the weight, and you're gonna be patient and really let that bounce happen before you start pressing. If you start pressing too soon, then you're not getting the full rebound, and it's just gonna be more of a grind. So if you want, that was your cadence is pretty good there. If we think like bounce, press, yeah. Make sure the abs stay tight so that whole system is rigid, and you're bouncing off the thighs. Remember, I want to make sure that you're pushing this part forward. Here. Okay? Not here. We don't want you overextending. So the abs stay squeezed as tight as you can so that you're pushing from the thighs. Okay? Good, man. This is a big improvement, and overall, really good. So just keep working on it. Keep working on constant tension through your whole body, not just your quads, right? Abs, wrists, forearms, biceps, everything is squeezed. The more rigid you can be, the more efficiently you're going to transfer that horizontal bounce to the vertical bounce. Okay. If anything's loose, you're going to lose some of that force in that looseness. Okay. But if it's rigid, you're going to get a much more dynamic pop. Okay. And just pay attention from rep to rep. Notice when you have an easy rep or one that's faster than the one before it, try and notice what the difference was. What were you thinking about that time? This is how you learn, what cues are important. So thank you for the post. And yeah, let's keep going. I don't know if we've looked at your deadlift, but that might be fun. Okay, maybe next week we can check out another lift because I think your press is pretty good. It's just reps now. All right, here we go. Another returning guy, normal character. This is my deadlift video. I would like to know that I am hitching the barbell up to finish the rep, and if I would like, okay, and if yes, is it the weight distribution issue across the foot, or am I opening the hips too early? This is 180 kilos. All right, well, let's take a look at the hitch, and maybe we'll talk about what the hitch is. Is this the same guy? All right. Sorry, I thought I was expecting to see someone else. Okay. Let me go back here. Was this just one rep? Oh no, we're gonna do more. Okay, good. So I see what you're talking about with a hitch. And for those of you guys that don't know what hitching means, it is when you have someone grinding out a weight, right? Okay. When a deadlift, and they get to that middle part right here where things get sticky and you're trying to finish it. A lot of times what you'll see is that they bring their knees under the bar, and they put their quads under the bar to hold the weight. Okay. And it's like sometimes it's usually an unintended motion, but they're just trying to finish the rep. And so the knees come forward, the weight of the bar gets taken up by the thighs to give them like a little bit of a rest, like they're resting there, and then it continues up. You're not hitching, okay? And the reason that I know that is because the bar keeps moving up. So the reason that a hitch is a disqualification the rep won't count in a powerlifting meet is because the rules of powerlifting are that once the bar starts traveling up, it has to travel consistently up to the top. And then when they tell you to set it back down, you set it back down. If the bar at any point during the rep moves the opposite direction, moves back down, then it's no lift. It doesn't count, right? You're going to get red lighted. So when you see someone hitch, that's what happens. They get stuck, and then in an effort to lighten the load, and they take some of the weight on their thighs, and in the process of doing that, the bar actually will move down slightly, and then after they've gotten their little rest, it comes back up. And sometimes it's very imperceptible. So like good referees know what they're looking for. But the bar starts to go up, and then it dips, and then it finishes. And you'll see like a shake with their body. If we watch your bar, it is a smooth, consistent bar path up. So while I see what you're talking about with your thighs coming under the bar, you're not actually resting the weight on there. You're not stopping the rep. Okay. So let's watch again. And if we just watch the bar on your legs, it never stops moving up. So this is technically not a hitch. Yeah. You're good. Now, if this was an app, like a true, oh, that's a nice recommendation. This is just going to start playing Pumping Iron. We should just watch this. Okay, what are we doing here? So if this was a true bone on bone 1 rep max limit attempt, and you were used to doing that motion and you stuck there, then we might see a hitch. But since this isn't your limit, this isn't a 1 rep max, you can do it. So you might want to work on that little part of it where you have this tendency to bring your thighs under the bar. Let me just watch one more time. I want to see how you're coming off the ground here. Oh, wait, let me watch that one again. Yeah, so basically it's just a timing issue between your knee extension and your hip extension, right? They're not as smooth in terms of, the idea is that they're going to lock out at the same time at the top, right? Like the squat, when you go down. On the way back up, your knees and hips will hit their full extension together. In your case, you're getting to here and you're kind of stopping pushing with the legs. You're stopping the knee extension and then switching your focus to the hip extension. And so you'll notice the back angle, your head kicks back, the back angle becomes more vertical while the knees have kind of stopped extending, right? So you're still, and then you finish with a little push at the end, right? Rather than the knee and hip joints kind of evenly doing their thing at the same pace. And so when they get to the top, they lock out. You're basically going knee extension, and then when you start the hip extension here, you kind of stop the knee extension and focus on standing up, bringing your hips in. And then right at the end, you finish with a strong knee extension. So you're going like knees, hips, knees, instead of like whatever, knees and then hips, and they all kind of lock out at the same time. You know what I'm talking about. So it's not technically wrong. You have a good deadlift. Like I like it. I would just try and keep your head down, right? Because when you lift your head, that's going to exacerbate the hip extension. When you lift your chin up like that, you're going to lift your chest up more aggressively. Now, your back angle is supposed to become more vertical, but if you want to even that out here, right, that this head position is good. And I know it's not an intended thing. You're like, I just got to get this thing off the ground, and you just throw it. You're probably not even thinking about it. But if you can make an effort to kind of keep your head in a more neutral position, and then at this moment, instead of thinking about pulling up, right? Like instead of thinking so much about aggressive hip extension, like making your back angle more vertical, if you think more about pushing your hips straight in, right? So as soon as you clear the knees, you want to think about your hips, just popping them, like aggressively thrusting them towards the bar. At the same time, you're still driving the legs. And that, as opposed to like, trying to articulate this, as opposed to lifting your chest and sliding the barbell up your thighs, right? Like this, like pulling back with hip extension, you think about pushing your hips forward so that the two joints lock together in one motion, like at the same time at the top. Okay. Something you're gonna have to work on probably with lighter weight, but see that shift right there? That was a good place to pause it. Your knees completely stopped moving and you just shifted like this, right? So you started, right? And you don't want your legs to stop helping. That's kind of the deal, because you've got some momentum as that thing comes up off the ground, and you don't want to have the knee extension stop and then start again. So it's a constant push, and it's a constant, once you clear the knee and it's time to extend the hips, that those two things should be constant, right? So thinking more about pushing the hips straight in, like thrusting them forward to the bar, may help you a little bit with that. But overall, this is a good deadlift, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. If you get to a really heavy weight though, and you have that little tick of stopping the knees and then restarting them, you may have a hitch, because if you paused it all right here, like if that was heavy enough to cause you to get stuck like the slightest bit, it's probably going to dip down and you will have a hitch. So just be aware of that. Focus on, keeping the knees going, and you should be good to go. But thanks for the post. Cool one. We haven't really talked about that, so these are fun. Okay, let's move on. Paul, you may recognize this rack. Here's my first squat form check. First one, okay. It is very hard to bend over to what feels like far enough. Okay, well that depends on your body type. So there is no far enough. There is far enough for you. And it, depending on how your segment length, how vertical or horizontal your back angle is going to vary from person to person. So I also find myself actively making sure I have a neutral spine to avoid a bend forward in the top third of my spine. Okay, this is the second work set. All right, well, we'll take a look and see if I can understand that a little better. Oh yeah, okay, you're Marissa's husband. I recognize that rack. Okay, before we go any further, I'm just gonna take this in pieces. This is not how you unrack a bar, all right? That's not how you squat, right? You don't squat with 1 foot forward and 1 foot back. Unracking the bar is a quarter rep, okay? It's a squat. So you get yourself under the bar, you get your feet in the squat position, you get your hands set, your chest up, your back tight, while the bar is sitting on the hooks. And then once everything is perfect, you just stand up like you did a little mini squat, okay? That's how you unrack the bar. So everything's as perfect as possible from the moment you have the weight on your back, all right? Minor detail, but it's important that you get in that pattern of, you know, making the whole process of unracking the bar identical every time. So both feet under the bar, treat it like a mini squat, and it gives you time to kind of mess around and make sure everything's right before you have weight on your back when it's harder to fix things. All right, so let's take a look at the set here. We'll watch a few of these. Okay. Oh boy. Okay. All right. Okay, we got work to do. This is gonna be fun. All right. There must be a bajillion things going through your head right now. This just looks like this looks like you are thinking about 1,000 things. Okay. All right, man. So you're my favorite kind of guy to work with because I would have guys come into the gym and they're like, I want help with my squat. And sometimes they get under the rack or under the bar and, they had driven an hour, 2 hours sometimes to come to the gym and do a session, and they'd unrack the bar and their squat would be almost perfect. I felt bad about that. But if they came in and they had a lot of problems, I was like, okay, good. You're going to get your money's worth today. So like I can help you. So we can help you a lot because there are a lot of things here that are making this feel harder than it should. And if we make a few basic tweaks here, then you're going to lift a lot more weight. It's going to feel easier. So let's start with the first rep. Okay. So first of all, I want to make sure that bar is in the right position, and it looks a little high on your back, but it could be the camera angle. It's really hard. It's close. It's close. So let's not worry about that right now. Okay, so the first issue is, aside from unracking it, notice how you're not even set. See how your knees are bent? Okay? Your knees are bent. Your hips are bent. Right? You're not locked out. And then you're going to go from here into just immediately starting. So you're not stable. Things are wobbling around, and then you just go into leaning over. All right. So we got to get rid of that. We got to fix that. So we got to fix your whole walkout process. So you get under, like I said, you set your stance the way you want it, your grip, then you just lock your knees out. You take 1 step back, 2 steps back, and then a little adjustment, right? So 1 step, 2 steps, and then you make a little adjustment to make sure everything's even. And then you make sure everything's locked out, okay? So once you're here, before you start the rep, you got to lock your knees and you got to lock your hips. And you need to learn, I've hammered on this before with other people, you need to learn that when you get to the top of the rep, you can take a break. You can relax, you can reset, refocus, retighten. Okay, you can only do that at the top of the rep if all your joints are locked out, if your hips are locked and your knees are locked. Otherwise, the longer you stand there, the more you're taxing your quads, your wearing out your muscles just standing there holding the bar, and you're going to need that strength later. So lock joints, you can stand there with a lot of weight on your back for a long time and the muscles are actually resting. Okay. So learning that right now, that the lockout position of the squat, of the bench press, these are my safe spaces. These are home. This is where I can take a break. This is where I can breathe. I can refocus and get ready for the next rep. You got to start learning that right now. So joints locked at the top. And then you take your breath and you start your rep. You do it, you come back up, you lock out. You figure out what you got to think about for the next rep. You get your breath, you get everything reset, you start the next rep. Okay. Every rep has to be as identical as possible. And that starts with unracking it. It starts with how you walk it out. It starts with locking your knees so that you're not wobbling, so that nothing's moving, so that you're perfectly still, your weight distribution's good, and now you're gonna start the rep. And then every rep goes through that same procedure. Okay? So now we gotta talk about the form. So this is, you're just leaning over here, your weight's back on your heels. Notice your knees are like behind your toes here. Okay, these knees, in order for you to get to the bottom of the squat, are probably gonna be in front of your toes. So they have to go forward. All you did was sit back, right? If we go back to here, watch your hips and your knees. Notice this is all you sticking your ass back and leaning over, right? So your weight's gonna be back on your heels. And in order for you to keep that bar balanced over the middle of the foot without the knees moving forward to counterbalance, right? If this is the middle, right? And the goal is to keep that barbell over the middle of the foot the whole time. Okay? Middle of the foot is here, right? That's your foot. This is the middle of the front of your foot. This is the middle of your whole foot. So the goal is to put the bar there when you're locked out and keep it there the whole time. If you just push your hips back, right, now everything's back here. And so you're going to have to lean over more to keep that barbell right over the center of balance where it wants to be. But if you push your knees forward and your hips back, now we're balanced, right? Now we're right over the middle. So knees, it's not just sit back. It's knees forward and hips back. The knees go forward, the hips go back. You stay right over the middle. Okay? So what's going to happen is when I hit play, this knee is going to probably end up here if you make it to depth, if you make it all the way down. Let's take a look and see if that happens. See, there they go. There they go. Okay, so look, now, and by the way, like, good job on depth. You're getting down there, which is great. But notice how far the knees traveled, and actually you slid back on your heels a little bit. So let's go to kind of before they slide back. All right, so if we watch the knees, and there they are. Okay, so this is where your knees want to, oops, that's a bad line. This is where your knees want to be, basically directly over your toe. Okay, you might be one of these rare guys that has the knees sort of slightly behind the toe. Most people are about an inch in front. Okay, so your knee wants to go here, right? What's gonna even this whole thing out for you is if you get it there by the halfway point down. Okay, so let me go back and show you, because all the other stuff that we have to, all the other errors that are happening with your squat are stemming from this, from not getting the knees where they need to be soon enough. Okay, so when you start the rep, it's lean over and shove your knees forward and out. The hips are going to go back. The hips will, when you lean over, the hips are going to go back. You don't even have to think about that. What you need to be thinking about is lean over, so set my back angle, right? And get my knees forward and out to counterbalance my hips going back so that my weight stays right over the middle of my foot. So by the time you're here, right, let's say halfway down, your knee should be where it's going to end up at the bottom. It should already be here. Okay, you see that gap? That gap is gonna close. And if it closes as you approach the bottom, it's gonna pull you forward and you're gonna go down and forward. Okay? So if you set it the first half of the rep, set your back angle. So the first half of the descent, by the time you're right here, two things are set. You're as leaned over as you're ever gonna be in the entire rep, and your knees are as far forward as they're ever gonna be. Those two things need to be established by this point, and then they're done. So then you're done thinking about leaning over and you're done thinking about your knees. The second half of the descent from this point down is all about you leaving the knees there and then stretching back with the hips. Oops. Reaching back with your hips. Okay, and that's how we stretch out those adductor muscles, your groin muscles, is you leave your knee here and you pull the hips back off that knee. And that's where that bounce comes from. But you're going down, right? And with the knee not in place, as you get to the bottom, the knee's pulling you this way. So rather than trying to shoot a bow and arrow by fixing your hand and pulling back, right? That's how you do it. You lock the knee, and you pull the hips back, and you stretch out that bowstring. You're going down, and you're trying to shoot a bow and arrow like this because the knee is pulling the hips forward at the bottom. So there's no stretch. So you're not going to get any bounce, okay? So those, and then there's no hip drive on the, okay, so we got to talk about that too. All right, so I'm going to tell you about a video I want you to watch. But from here, just so we've covered this, notice you're now on your toes, like your heels are almost lifting up off the ground because the knees pulled you forward. Regardless, just to cover the ascent, because you're going to have to work on this and then come back and we're going to dial it in, just like we did with your wife, who now has like a perfect squat. By the way, you just watch her squat. It's just do what she's doing. From this position, the drive up, if you watch, so your weight needs to be more back here, right? So you're on your toes, but forget about that for a second. The way you're going to come up out of the bottom is by driving your hips up. You're going to maintain this back angle and you're going to shove your ass up, okay? Now, when I hit play, you're going to see the opposite of that. You're going to see you take this back angle and make it like this. So you're here, you're going to just stand up and you're just going to open your hips up and your shoulders are going to go back. Your back angle is going to become more vertical. That's not hip drive. Notice that your head kicks back and you just remember that back angle you set on the way down. You're going to keep that all the way down and then drive, and then you're going to try and keep it all the way up till you get to the point that you leaned over in the first place and then finish. So lean over and then stay leaned over as long as you can till you're almost back at the top, and then you stand up, then you lift your chest. Right now you're going down to the bottom and just opening up your hips. What we want instead is you keep this back angle and you drive your butt up. That's the hip drive, right? I mean, just to give you an example of this, I've got a perfect person to show you the difference, right? Look at, right? So on the left side, she's doing what you're doing, right? She's just trying to lift her chest up. And on the right side, notice she leans over and she drives her butt up and she maintains that angle. Okay? So watch, lean over, and then she lifted a little on that one. But that's a good one, right? Her hips lead her out. She holds on to that angle. She's not lifting her chest. Okay? So if we just compare the two and we look at her about halfway up, right? Look at how leaned over she is, right? Now, if we go back to you, on the way up, look at how vertical you are in that same spot, right? Let's see if I can pause it. Look at that. The difference between these two, right? Horizontal back angle, vertical back angle. She is still leaned over. She's maintaining the angle she had at the bottom and using hip drive, right, to get up. You're using hip extension to get up, and notice how you, right? Okay? So that's what you got to work on. It's a lot, but you got a good coach there living with you. So from the top, lock out, lean over, shove the knees forward and out, right? Halfway down, knees are set. You're as leaned over as you're ever going to be. Go to the bottom. Out of the bottom, you drive your butt up. You stay leaned over as long as you can, and then you open up your hips at the top. So HORNSTRENGTH.com/videos, exercise library, how to squat. Okay. Good resources here. All my notes are in here. You can read that. But the other important video is down here at the bottom. What do the hips and knees do in the squat? Okay, I think it's called Let's Get to the Bottom of Your Squat. And yeah, let's get to the bottom of your squat. And this is where I explain the whole relationship between the hips and knees. I use rubber bands. I talk about scissor lifts. I use a tubo to show all that stuff. So watch that video. It should give you a much better understanding of what's happening here and what the hips and knees are supposed to do in the squat. Okay? So you got some homework, but I'm excited because once you dial this in, 95 pounds is going to be nothing. Okay? But you just have to understand the movement and just practice getting the hips and knees going together. And then all the other issues are going to kind of sort themselves out. Okay? So that's your homework. Thank you for posting. It was good to get into this. And I look forward to seeing the update because based on Marissa's progress, in 3 weeks, she just completely transformed her squat. It looks fantastic. So we're going to do the same thing for you. Just keep trying and we'll get this dialed in. Okay, let's keep going. Dick. All right. Dick is back. Dick took a little hiatus, but he's back in action. Okay. Let's see. I'm back after having some time striving behind the scenes on my squat. Quick summary of what you sent me away to work on. Upper back was rounding, so was trying the thumbs around grip. I'm sorry. I couldn't get this to work for me, however hard I tried. Please don't be cross with me. No problem. You try. I'm with you, man. This forced me to rethink thumbs on top, so I've been trying to keep my grip width as narrow as possible to keep the back bar combo as tight as possible to also stop the bar rolling up my back. Yes. You asked me to post again when I thought I nailed it. This isn't bang on, but I feel like I've gotten a lot closer. Previous things were working and leaning over sooner, staying in the hips, keeping the head down, keeping the knees out, not so much. Okay, 145. Let's take a look. Let's catch up with Dick, see how he's doing. I missed you, buddy. All right. Back in the dungeon. So let's see here. Tight? Oh, okay. Interesting. Not bad. Nice. Okay. Okay. You're getting out of your hips a little too early, but better than where we left off for sure. Now, just before I forget, listen, we talked about this thing where you look forward and then you look down. It's at the top. You're looking down and then you're going to look up. And then back down. I think you do it worse on some of the other reps. Looking down. That little extra head tilt. Maybe I'm seeing things. Yeah, no, remember our goal here is we're going to put your eyes on one spot at the bottom. That was the one I caught. Let's see if you do it on the last one. Where you're looking straight ahead here. And then you're going to, as soon as you start, your eyes are going to go down. Yeah, that one you're looking straight and then down. Okay, that's the thing you got to get rid of because that's going to totally throw your balance off. Because as you're starting to lean over, your eyes are moving, right? And we talked about this a lot before. Your balance is so much better if you're staring at a spot the whole time, right? Because your brain can reference the distance to that spot as you move, and it helps stabilize the whole system. If as you're doing like one of the most important parts, which is how you initiate the descent in the squat, your gaze is like traveling around, it's gonna be real hard for you to balance everything. So whatever spot this is that you're staring at right now on the way down, whatever you're looking at there, okay? Whether it's like here, just you want to be looking at that the whole time, okay? Or at least, I'm trying to think about what I do during my squat. Even if when I get to the top and lock out, if I look up for some reason, before I start leaning over, before I even start moving, I fix my eyes on the spot and then I go. Your problem is that you're looking here and then as you're going, changing the gaze. So I don't care if you get to the top of the rep and for some reason you want to look at the wall, maybe there's something on there, but before you start, eyes down and then start. Make it its own motion. Don't do it as you're diving for the floor, okay? So let's talk about the rest of it. I really like the upper back tightening. Your back is rounding less, so this is good. And you do a real good job of like arching on this first rep, like really getting it up there. And then more importantly, holding it. Okay. Now to do that, you're trying to stay a little too upright. That was better. That second rep was better. Cause you got a little more, these are good, man. Like you're losing it a little bit at the bottom. And you're coming out of it a little too quickly at the top, right? Notice how quickly you start lifting your chest. It's like that's your back angle and then you're immediately coming up. So this is a good back angle for you. Like this is good. Depth is good. But the way you're built, you're going to be a little bit more horizontal than a lot of people, which is fine. It is what it is. So this is the angle, right? And so you want to get to that angle sooner and you want to keep it longer on the way up, right? And you know this, we've talked about this. But notice how quickly this angle is going to become this, right? Because you're going to just start lifting your chest and throwing your shoulders back. Let's see. Held on to it better on that one. There, yeah, you just gotta stay leaned over longer. See, you're okay. So look, dude, minor tweaks here. Fix the eye gaze, right? So look down here. So before you take that breath, okay, let's dial this in for you. You come up here, okay? You do whatever. Before you take this breath, put your eyes on the ground, pick your spot. Then with your head down, take the breath and tighten your back up and don't take your eyes off that spot. Okay. So then you just have to reorder things here because you're going to breathe while you're still looking up. And then you even start moving and then look down, right? If you look at the rate of this, okay, if I slow this thing down to like watch when you start leaning over and your head, breath, and then you're going to start and then your eyes go down. Okay. And then watch on the way up. That lifting right there. Just some of these, it's real early. Some of them, it's like just like a second too soon that you're starting to get out of your hips. Okay. So I like what you're doing here. I think if you pick your spot on the ground, take your breath, arch your upper back, get tight, and then go. That's the order, right? We've got that launch sequence for the deadlift. Let's have one for the squat. Lock out, look wherever the hell you want. When you're ready to squat, eyes down, big breath, chest up, start the rep. Okay, that's the order. Eyes down, big breath, chest up, right? Lean over, okay? So, and that's gonna help a lot just with balance. And it's gonna help you set that back angle a little sooner on the way down because that's kind of the issue. Like the first rep's a real good example. If we look at how long it takes you to actually set that back angle on the way down, you're almost at the bottom. So you're gonna stay vertical like the whole time and come down, and then right at the bottom, you're gonna hit that right? You're going to hit that. Your back's going to slam into that. Still leaning over, finally there. And then now you need to get back out of it. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, and the problem with that is if you get to, let's see here. If you get here, let me see if I can do this a little better. Yeah, you're pretty good. This is a good rep. That's why. And you stayed leaned over a little longer. But let me go back to this one. So if you get your back angle set and locked in by the halfway point, okay, so you're still too upright here, right? You're going to end up a little more leaned over at the bottom. If you had fixed that and set the back angle exactly where it needed to be by this point, then all you're going to be doing is pushing straight up. But because you're not fully leaned over at the bottom, as you hit the bottom, you finish the lean over as you're starting to drive up. Okay, you see what I'm talking about? So you're here, you're coming down, and then as you hit depth, you finish the lean, right? So your chest is moving down at the moment you need to drive your hips up, and that's going to get the bar to roll up a little higher because you're going this way. Okay, and so you're going to feel the bar. That's going to make it's going to make your chest round more, and then it's going to make you throw your shoulders back because you feel that bar rolling up a little bit, and you're like, oh, I'm going to lose it. So I need to just open up my hips and kill your hip drive. Instead, if you finish the back angle by the halfway point, then all you're doing is going down. Everything's still tight and balanced, and you just drive your butt up and you can hang on to that back angle longer. But it's that transition of the chest still leaning over while the hips are coming up that's going to get everything to roll forward. So the short version is set your back angle sooner, meaning lean over more right away. And fixing the eye gaze is going to help with that. And then if you nail that, then you won't have that rolling and you'll be able to stay in your hips longer on the way up. Okay, so that's what I want you to work on. Fix the eyes and get leaned over sooner. Get that, and you did it on some of these reps. Like you definitely got a little bit more leaned over sooner. Let's see if we can see one. Like that one. Like you're pretty much there, and you had a little bit less roll. So as much as you can, nipples to the wood. Like as soon as you start, just point your nipples down, keep that chest up, but just hinge over so that by the halfway point, that back angle, you're as leaned over as you're ever going to be halfway down. And then everything else should kind of fall back into place. You won't have the rolling and you won't have to get out of your hips so soon. Okay? But these definitely look a lot better than what I remember from the last time. So work on that stuff and let's keep working on it. Let's keep going. All right. Good to see you. Welcome back. I'm happy with these. Like these are minor tweaks and things we can, we don't have to rebuild your squat, and you've got the upper back tightness at the top. Like you've made a big improvement on that. So whatever you're doing there, just keep doing it. Okay. I think we got one more. Let's see. 6'2", 211 pounds, 38 years old. This is a video of my 220 pound squat. I started at 130 pound squat in January, February, March, April, May, June, July. Okay. All right. Just wondering if you see anything that would be artificially holding me back. I have started to get some occasional knee, elbow, and low back pain. Everything hurts. I don't have enough experience to know if it's just normal soreness or if something caused by poor form. I just switched in the video to the thumbs around grip at your suggestion because my elbows were starting to hurt from the thumbs on top grip. Fine. Sorry for the camera angle. My rack is against a basement wall. Okay. Let's see. You started in January and it's almost been a year, and you're 38, 211, 6'2", and you're squatting 220. So something's not working here because you should be way past that. So let's see. Let's take a look at the form and see if there's a technique thing that's holding you back. All right, so right off the bat, your stance is too narrow, okay? So you want a heels under the shoulder stance, not foot under the shoulder, heels under the shoulder. So that needs to be a little bit wider, I think. I mean, I can pretty much, unless your camera's really screwing with me, your feet look too close together. So widen your stance. Like you can look in the mirror and you want your heel to be kind of right under your shoulder here, okay? Let's see. Oh, good depth, good back angle. Bar looks like it's in the right place. Good hip drive. These are pretty good, man. Taking a little too long to lean over. So that one got you on your toes a little bit. Okay. Yeah, you're kind of going down and forward. But you're hanging on. I mean, it's kind of hard for me to see where the bar is on your back from there. It looks, no, that looks good. As long as it's staying there. These are good, man. So widen the stance a little bit. That'll give you a little bit more of a bounce. And you're just, I mean, you're leading with your hips. You're holding on to the back angle on the way up. But you're initiating this more with the knees, okay? So if we watch, let me see if I can catch this for you. If we slow it down, if we take a look at the breaking, your hips unlocking and your knees unlocking and see which one goes first. Let's see that again. Looks hips. Knees just aren't really traveling that, they're unlocking a little. So it's mostly you sitting back. Okay, so what we need to do here is I need you to lean over more. You're kind of trying to stay a little vertical as you start the rep. And the knees aren't getting set. Let's see if there's some knee slide here. The knees look pretty good there. Like they're not sliding at the bottom. Minor tweaks here, man. This is a pretty good squat. Yeah, you just look like you're getting pulled onto your toes a little bit here. But, okay. So here's my advice. You got to lean over a little faster. And you got to, that's the main issue, is just setting that back angle a little sooner. So if we look at your back angle at the bottom, or right as you drive up, see this back angle here? Okay. I want that back angle at the halfway point. So I want you to be that leaned over. Like there, okay? And you're not far off. You're not far off, but you started a little late. You started by kind of keeping your chest up and just kind of unlocking your hips a little bit, just sitting back, but you're not like leaning over. I want you to dive. Just all you got to do is think about from the top, I'm going to touch my sternum right between, like to the rubber mat, like right between my toes, okay? I'm going to lean over and I'm going to point my sternum right between my toes in the middle on the rubber mat. Okay. And in order to do that, I got to get my knees out of the way because otherwise my thighs are going to block me. So it's one motion of like leaning over and shoving the knees forward and out right away. Don't worry about sitting back. Okay. There's too much focus on sitting back. Worry about lean over and shove my knees forward and out and make room for me to touch my chest on that rubber. That's all I want you thinking about on the way down. Get this point closer to that point on the ground between your toes. Let's just think about that, okay? Horizontal. So if you get leaned over a little bit faster, everything else is going to fall into place. You're going to end up more balanced at the bottom, and you're going to end up with better hip drive. I mean, your hip drive's good. That's not what I meant. You're going to end up driving up and not having to go forward at all because your balance will be set. But I would recommend, if you haven't already, and I recommended this in the last video, watching this video, Let's Get to the Bottom of Your Squat on YouTube. You can find it on, well, if you just go to YouTube and search Let's Get to the Bottom of Your Squat. I talk all about knees, hips, and the roll, and some drills you can do with a tubo or piece of wood or something like that, or a pipe, just to get the relationship of, you need to get your knees a little bit more forward right away. You're not bad at all. But I think focusing more on setting that back angle early and hanging on to it, right? So it's just set, and then, because the rest of it's good. Your depth is good. It'll get even better once you get the balance worked out. And the hip drive's good. Widen the stance a little bit. And I mean, this is basically my takeaway is you just need to lean over a little more sooner, right? Because you're getting to that. Everybody gets to the right back angle. It's just, when do you get to it? Do you get to it when you start driving up, right? No, you want to get to it halfway down and then just leave it there and hang on to it the whole time. So chest right between the toes. And I think if you just focus on that, everything else will take care of itself. And so you can try also, you might want to try some pause squats just with light weight, like your first set with the empty bar, and, you know, maybe your first set with weight, whatever your weighted warm-up is. You can use at hornstrength.com/videos. You can go to the pause squat here on YouTube. There's a description down below of the instructions for using this, but that may just kind of help you if you just do these every time, and I still do them every time for my warm-ups with empty bar, just to remind myself what the bottom feels like. Kind of helps you get a little bit dialed in. If you notice you're still kind of leaning over when you get down to the pause, then you can try and do it a little faster. But that would really be my only recommendation. I think your squat is good. So let's go back and look at your programming, your question about your programming. So you're 38, you're 211, so you're not, necessarily you're 6'2", so, but you're not underweight. But your squat progress has been slow. So, and it's been a year. So it's, it's hard to know without knowing more about what you've been doing. My guess is that it's probably mental. You've either been, unless you've been injured. And to answer your question, there's nothing in your form that would make me indicate that things should hurt. So I don't know, because I don't know what you've been doing, but I have a feeling that you might be a guy who's probably a little too meticulous with technique, which has paid off because your technique is very good. But at some point, like, I've worked with a lot of guys who just, like, they keep resetting themselves because it's like, oh, wait, it's falling apart. I got to back off. And at some point you have to put more weight on the bar, and you have to learn the lessons that heavier weight will teach you about keeping your form tight. I had another client, or a guy on Reddit, realize this recently, that like, oh, actually, when the weight is heavy, you can tell when you do it right and when you don't. And a lot of guys will take weight, they feel, especially if you're training alone, it just feels like it's breaking down. So you're like, this isn't right, I got to back off. And you just get stuck in this cycle of resetting. That's why having a coach is useful, because they can, there's a part in my book where, I think I mentioned that at some point, all this feels terrible, right? It all, like, you get to a weight where everything after that feels like shit, varying degrees of shit. Like, it never feels like you're just fluid. Occasionally you have like a great day, but most of the time it feels like you're barely holding it on, you're barely holding it together. And then you look at the video and it looks like way better. It looks smooth. You're like, who's that guy? Because it didn't feel like that. And if you watch other people squat and you think, God, it's so smooth, but when I get under the bar, it's like, I feel like I'm just going to fall apart at any moment. Like, no, that's it. That's what that guy's feeling. He's feeling that. It just doesn't look that way because it feels worse than it looks, right? So filming, watching, having a coach, being objective about it, these are all things that can help you kind of break through these mental plateaus of, my form felt a little off, I better repeat, or I better go back down. Like, at some point, I mean, I have some guys where I have to pull them back because they just want to go up and their form is getting worse. But there are plenty of guys who you need to push. Like, dude, it was fine. Put more weight on the bar. Let's go. Okay. So there's nothing in your form that tells me you shouldn't be squatting well into the 300s by now. So unless you've been hurt or traveling or something, it's going to be a thing, a mental thing for you where you are just not pushing yourself because for whatever reason. And it's not a, you know, it's not a knock. It's one of the things that weights have to teach us, which is that like you can push yourself and you need to if you want to make progress. I certainly had periods where I reset way more times when I should have just sucked it up and moved on, you know, just made it work. So it's a balancing act of figuring out what you need. But if you want to talk more programming, you can post a thread on Reddit separately and I'll kind of look at what you've been doing. But my guess is you just got to put more weight on the bar, man, because your form's pretty damn good. So let's keep talking. You can post another video when you think you got the back angle thing straightened out, and we'll go from there. But let's make 2024 the year where you squat 315 for 5, okay? Because I think a year from now, that's well within your reach, based on what I'm seeing. So we'll see. All right. Happy to help. All right, guys, we did it. And it was good to see some old faces again. So thank you all for coming back and sticking with it. And then the new guys, like, right on. We got some work to do, but that's always fun because then we get to see the payoff, which is your squats completely transformed and stuff like that. So I believe that I'm going to take next Friday off because it's Thanksgiving. People are going to be traveling. And I just don't think, you know, it's a holiday. So I'm going to take Friday off. And so then we'll pick it up the week after Thanksgiving. And I will miss you all, but I look forward to see you again soon. Thanks as always for tuning in, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a great holiday, guys. Thank you for being a part of this. And yeah, just enjoy time with family. We'll do it all again soon. Take care.